Hello, beautiful human beings. Thank you so much for dropping by this channel. To anyone who's new, this channel is dedicated to educating people on the difference between Advaita Vedanta, real non-duality, and Neo-Advaita, fake non-duality, and the harms and dangers of fake non-duality and how to recover from it. Well, Neo-Advaita is alive and well. I was on Quora. And so Quora is a question and answer website. People ask all different types of questions. And someone asked, how do you surrender sarangati and what blocks you to do it? So I may be mispronouncing the Sanskrit. Sarangati is a Sanskrit word which means to surrender or to take full and absolute refuge. That's actually a better translation. Absolute refuge in the divine. And it's a practice which Ramana Maharshi completely advocated. In fact, he went so far as to say that there are only two paths to overcome destiny, or two paths to find liberation, and that surrender, or saranagati, there you go, I got it on the third try, was one such path, and that it was valid. And in fact, that self-inquiry and saranagati were actually, in essence, two sides of the same coin, that they work really in the same way. Interestingly enough, surrender works with the language and sentiments of duality, right? You surrender to God or higher power. And sometimes Ramana, and Ramana was such a skilled teacher. To some people, he would use the language of duality to talk about surrender, and sometimes he'd use the language of non-duality. My assumption, talking about surrender, and my assumption is he was just feeling into where the person was. So it's a beautiful question, and it just got this ridiculous answer. This person wrote, "You cannot surrender because, frankly, there is no you." This simple fact may be seen, all caps, with amazing clarity, and that clarity is surrender. I mean, that's just absolute bullshit. It's completely contradictory to how Ramana defines surrender. But more so to the point, this idea that you don't exist. That's one of the main things that distinguishes Neo-Advaita from actual Advaita. Actual Advaita says you are not the person you take yourself to be. Neo-Advaita says the person you take yourself to be doesn't exist. One of them is focused on shifting identification. Actual non-duality is like, hey, all the things you think of as you aren't you. There's something deeper. Neo-Advaita says all the things that you think of as you are an illusion and don't exist, and there is no you. And so then it creates the insane goal of trying to eliminate the you. Actual Advaita Vedanta doesn't try and destroy the you. It tries to destroy the sense of identification with the you. That's one of the reasons why Neo-Advaita doesn't work, and no one is actually waking up in Neo-Advaita, because they have a false goal. Well, I won't say false. What I'll say is they have a goal that's completely different from actual non-duality. Neo-Advaita has made up a goal. So I pointed out to this person, I said, if what you were saying is true, why did Ramana Maharshi say there are only two ways, inquiry or surrender? That was the very short version. And then this person did what Neo-Advaita teachers do. He made up a teaching. He said, because Ramana has to say something to the questioner to give them some kind of hope. What Ramana says will be lodged like a seed in the psyche of the questioner, which will sprout in its own time. And I didn't catch it. I knew that was wrong, but I didn't catch. See, Neo-Advaita makes a religion out of self-inquiry. And anything other than self-inquiry, it'll redirect to self-inquiry. Whereas Ramana Maharshi said that surrender in and of itself is a sufficient path. But this person, like all Neo-Advaita teachers, has made a religion out of self-inquiry. So they can't accept the idea that surrender is a valid path. They have to kind of attack it and put it down because it contradicts their religion. So I responded saying, well, actual non-duality teachers teach both. And then this person said, I do not consider myself as a non-duality teacher, but I am addressing students of non-duality only. I am not talking to the public at large. Oh my God, the next thing they say is hilarious. So right now, this person is lying. They may not consider themselves a non-duality teacher. I believe that, but they are addressing the public at large. This person has written over 1,000 answers on Quora. They have over 1,000 followers, and they're approaching 2 million views. And almost all of their questions are about topics of non-duality that aren't necessarily directly connected to non-duality. Some of them are. Some of them are really not. And then this person will then steer things to non-duality, or actually not non-duality, but to their Neo-Advaita version of non-duality. So then on top of it, this person justifies what they're doing. This is the age of internet, and someone will be doing what I am doing anyway. That is today's reality. I appreciate your concern, though. It's like, well, somebody's going to do it, so I'm going to do it. But what this person doesn't realize is they're not teaching Advaita Vedanta. They're teaching Neo-Advaita. And I know I hanker on and on about this, but me getting really clear what Advaita Vedanta is helps me to face false teachings like this and to recognize Advaita Vedanta is nothing more and nothing less than the methodology of attaining endless peace through the teachings of Adi Shankara. So Adi Shankara systematized how to do this. Ramana Maharshi would give us bits and pieces of it. He didn't necessarily approach it in the same systematic way, but everything he taught, and he over and over spoke of Adi Shankara and Adi Shankara's teachings in the highest light. So then I get a little firmer and I say, well, Ramana said both methods lead to the same goal. And then I point out, it's sad that many people falsely claim that he looked down on methods other than self-inquiry, when in fact he said japa, the repetition of God's name, bhakti, the practice of devotion, surrender, saranagati. Traditional Kundalini yoga, not what you'll find in yoga studios, were all valid means to self-realization. So I basically point out, look, what you're teaching is wrong. And here's what Ramana said. It's like, here's what Ramana said, here's what you're saying. They're in opposition. So instead of responding to what I said, this person said, I have known about Ramana Maharshi since I was 8 years old. I have read nearly all the books published by Ramana Ashram. I am now 70. I love and revere Ramana Maharshi. So that's one of the interesting things is Neo-Advaita teachers cannot engage in dialogue about Advaita Vedanta because they're not teaching Advaita Vedanta. They're teaching something completely different. Normally what they do is they attack. Interestingly enough, what this person did was defend. He defended himself. I'm basically saying, look, what you're teaching is different from Ramana. And this person is like, I know Ramana. I've been studying Ramana for 62 years and I've read all these books. And so that gives me hope for this person. And I just have, I get a good vibe from this person. I think And this person, here's the other, this is the most amazing part of this story. I wish I'd said this at the beginning. This person has a traditional Advaita Vedanta guru, a non-dual, they have a traditional guru. What they don't, their guru has a very large following, so isn't, unless this person is like a senior disciple, which from their answer, I can tell they're not. So this guru, unfortunately, is not available for one-on-one talks with most of their students because they have a very, very large following. So, but this person has is in connection with an actual Advaita Vedanta guru. And still they're teaching this ridiculous nonsense, this harmful, ridiculous nonsense. You know, that, you know, the thing, the language we hear in Neo-Advaita, the world doesn't exist, you don't exist, just inquire, you are consciousness. That makes up about like 2 to 3% of Ramana's teachings. He very rarely would say such things. And if you don't believe me, good. You shouldn't. But you can find out for yourself. You can go read Day by Day with Bhagavan. Day by Day with Bhagavan. It's a fairly, so far as I can tell, unedited record of his conversations. Most of what we read about Ramana is edited and editorialized. But that's a pretty just, this person came, said this, Ramana said this. Later in the afternoon, this person said this, is pretty, and you'll see it's completely different from the stuff that this person was teaching or the stuff you'll hear in the average Neo-Advaita satsang. So I'll be, I'm going to see if there's anything else I want to say. The interesting thing is so again, you know, this person has over 8,000 answers. That's a lot. That's a lot of answers. That's a lot of time, energy, and attention. And they've been doing this since 2015. So what is that? That's almost 8 years. So they've written almost 1,000 answers a year for 8 years. And what I've realized happened to this poor person, and it happened to me, and it happened to many others. I didn't go as far down the hole as this person did with the whole I'm a teacher thing. But thinking I was enlightened, yes, I did go down that hole. Thank God I woke up from that delusion. What Neo-Advaita teachers have done is they've just replaced their old personality with the I'm a teacher personality. They've literally just made a new personality. And they've made a new identity. It's like, oh, I'm not Joe Smith. That's not the person's name, by the way. I am an Advaita Vedantian. I'm not a teacher, but I am sharing my discoveries and convictions. And this person seems like a really good guy. And that's the thing is, you know, not all, I don't know what the percentages are. Not all Neo-Advaita teachers are bad people. I think, I'm guessing kind of the majority are good people. Just lost, you know, lost in the false enlightenment game. And I have to salute this person. You know, they sidestepped what I said. They defended themselves, but they didn't attack me. And so I tip my hat to that teacher. And it's so slippery. I didn't realize I had to get a couple layers into this conversation to be like, wait a minute. Like I knew this person was off, but I didn't even catch the full spectrum of what's going on, because Neo-Advaita uses language of spiritual truth. The people who do it, and this person did it a little bit, they play manipulative emotional games that appear to be spiritual. For example, this person wrote, instead of responding to what I said, they wrote, "I appreciate your concern, though. I take your criticism with love." So instead of Ong Shakti Ong, hi, Heart of a Warrior. If you have any, great to have you here. Feel free to, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them in. But that's not a dialogue. That's a push aside, like, I'm going to act spiritual. And so Neo-Advaita uses the language of truth. It uses manipulative word games. This person wasn't too bad, but they were kind of bad. They made up a teaching about Ramana Maharshi. They weren't able to acknowledge that their teaching was in direct opposition. And then they used spiritual language to appear loving. And on top of it, a lot of these teachers are able to transfer Shaktipat and energy blessing. And on top of it, if you think things like, I don't exist, you will have a kind of spiritual experience that is connected to the truth. So it's very slippery. It's very slippery. Again, language of truth based on a profound and ancient spiritual teaching, with these kind of word games. And if you follow the word games or do the practices, you will have a spiritual experience that is connected to something true. All of it's deeply connected to something true, but it's also dirty. Like the song Tainted Love. Like love that has all these weird hooks in it that comes at you sideways. Like, yeah, that has some genuine love in it, but with a price tag, connected to it. Neo-Advaita is tainted love. And Heart of a Warrior wrote, Neo-Advaita is a big issue. It's getting bigger every day. Because I've just become aware of these various Neo-Advaita healing modalities that are becoming popular. And there has to be a new Neo-Advaita teacher who starts teaching every day, if not 2 or 3 a day. It is a big issue. Thanks for saying that. And welcome to the channel. Love your name, Heart of a Warrior. That's what I had to become to get out of this crap. Because I kept falling. Neo-Advaita is so good at keeping people in. And if you move out of it, pulling you back into it. So I've had to become a bit of a warrior myself. Not just dealing with Neo-Advaita teachers, but to keep myself from falling back into the trap. It's very alluring. The matrix is very alluring. All right, well, I think that's everything I have to say tonight about this. I'm tired. Ugh. But let's take this comment. Adi Shankara, the founder of authentic Advaita, never laughed at scriptures or neglected duality or bhakti yoga. He established temples and worshiped the goddess. Heart of a Warrior, where have you been all my life? I've been saying things like that for 4 years. Some of Adi Shankar's the founder of Nonduality, some of his most famous works are devotional poems to the goddess. And he beautifully said he never negated duality. See, one of the big problems with Neo-Advaita is its methodology. Its methodology is completely bogus and harmful. So I'm going to read your Adi Shankara, the founder of authentic Advaita, never laughed at scriptures, beautifully said, or neglected duality, beautifully said, or bhakti yoga, which is presented in Vashishta Advaita, and I've spoken about Vashishta Advaita. He established temples and worshipped goddess, and not only that, he established I forget the technical term. You might know it. He established systems of worship. He systematized how to worship. I forget what it's called, the Smarta system. He literally came up with a system, the Smarta tradition. One moment. Maybe he didn't come up with the Smarta. I think he did. So let me take that back. I'm not 100% sure on that. But regardless, Heart of a Warrior, your points are very well taken and very welcome here. Glad you found the channel. And yeah, to you or to anyone who's new to this channel, I have a mailing list, and I'm starting to do events, and I'm gonna start doing some, like, this is just an impromptu broadcast, but I'm starting to do scheduled events, where I let people know in advance. And okay, there it is. Traditionally, Adi Shankara is regarded as the greatest teacher and reformer of the Smarta tradition. So the founder of non-duality taught people how to worship. Worship is a dualistic act, because he recognized that he was able to perceive that it's a process. Authentic non-duality is a process. Neo-Advaita is just like skipping to the dessert and then eating too much of it and getting sick to your stomach. Great to meet you, Heart of a Warrior. And thanks to everyone who took the time to check out this video. More will be revealed. Take care, beautiful human beings. Much gratitude.